My name is Joe Brodnick, and I am the father of a 6-year-old girl. Her name is Pema. And our relationship is the foundation of everything that I'm about to share. I'm also a kindergarten teacher, and I'm here in Bone Canyon to speak with you about outdoor education and some of the neuroscience behind your child's developing mind. This is a classroom. Four days a week, my partner, Soka Markowski, and I take the kids out here and to other locations. We spend the entire day outside, rain, snow, or shine. The kids carry their own backpacks. We walk a mile or so, and when we arrive, the kids play, we do crafts, we tell stories, we eat lunch, we make food. When the weather's bad, we make fires. We watch the animals, and we experience the change of the seasons. Some people think we do this because it's fun. The kids get to run around outside and be all natural and stuff. And to some degree, that's true. But the root of this education is not merely the exercise of the physical body, but the development of the mind. Here is a picture of your brain. As a cohesive unit, it is remarkably adaptive and flexible. And partly that's because there are all these different areas. There's the thalamus, the hypothalamus, Broca's area, Wernicke's area, the hippocampus, the cerebrum, and more. So much more, in fact, that I could not possibly name them all. These areas do many subtle and sensitive things. In fact, we mostly don't know what they do. But in general, each area is devoted to a particular task. Vision, motor skills. Part of the process of growing up is tuning each of these areas to the physical environment. We learn to smell, to see, to taste, to balance, to walk. And then we refine these areas into further intricate and diverse ways of being. And we do this anywhere and everywhere. And this is what marks Homo sapiens as an incredibly adaptive and flexible species. No other animal on the planet even comes close. But we have something else too, our minds. Besides the individual areas and their functions, which we share with most other animals, we have this incredibly thick and convoluted cortex. This is the part of the brain that looks like spaghetti, the image that most of us are familiar with. The cortex is the most recent development in evolutionary terms. And amongst other things, it is what allows us an incredibly sophisticated view of our world, that is, our own brains. That's because within the cortex, and other areas as well, there are interconnections which allow second and third order operations and beyond. Our visual processing alone is comprised of dozens of areas in the brain communicating with one another, most of which are unconscious. The more numerous the interconnections are, the more downstream the process is, the more complex the thinking is. That doesn't mean better, but it does mean more complicated. And it's right here where the interconnections are the most rich and diverse. This is not the command center, but you could liken it to a video room, the place where the most amount of information previously sifted by the other areas of the brain is brought to the light of consciousness. It's no surprise then that many human traditions consider this the seat of wisdom, of spirit or soul, of rationality. And most of us sense this intuitively. It's the place we feel we are, especially when we think long and hard about the most important things. In a sense, it's the place with the widest and deepest view of yourself. That is your own brain. In neuropsychological terms, we call this the mind. For centuries, Westerners believed the mind was distinct from the body. The soul and the spirit up here, and the body and dirt down here. This is still prevalent in our culture, as elsewhere, but modern neuroscience is dispelling that myth. Turns out, the mind and the body are one. And not just the brain and the mind, but literally the whole body. So, in order to develop the mind, one must first or concurrently develop the body. And this is obvious in the most basic sense. Spiritual and religious ideas aside, no mind or brain has ever been demonstrably kept alive without a living, breathing body. At Taos Earth Children, we bring the children to Bone Canyon and many other spectacular settings. Our days are simple, and we let our imaginations and our bodies lead us. We do this not merely to stimulate the body, but to develop and enrich the children's minds. Call it soul, if you will. And that's because as a child develops her sense of smell, of touch, of balance, and felt body sense, she tunes each area within her brain to the nervous system within her body. And these attunements carry on in real and palpable ways into higher order thoughts. Now, let's be honest. Any environment, including traditional classrooms, does this too. So I'm not here to criticize, simply to highlight the effectiveness of outdoor education to tune the body-mind organism. And that's because the stimulation of the mind is not merely the engagement of the hands and eyes and feet, but the navel and the throat, the wet, the coarse, the fine, the cold and hot. So it's not enough to educate our children on the 3 R's. If we want bright and healthy children capable of sensing the interconnections between earth, body, and mind, whether that's in a city or in a rural area, whether it's alone or in a social group, then we need to stimulate their bodies, their senses, both external and internal, in the most diverse and rich ways possible. As I mentioned at the beginning, the root of this conversation is my relationship with my daughter, Pema. So I dedicate this to her and to all the children in my care and all the children everywhere. I also want to thank Soka Markowski, my partner, a Waldorf educator for the last 30 years. It's her inspiration that causes us to be out here.
I heard the ocean, and I heard it. I heard the river. I heard it. Look at I found silence, and I heard it go. Look at it.
And look, what does this look like? Look at my fingers.
I heard a heartbeat.
Now, one last thing. You might have seen all the pretty pictures of the kids smiling and having fun outside, and perhaps you felt a bit jealous. You might think it's great for the kids, but sort of begrudge the fact that you did not have such an education. And so I should say I myself am the product of a very conventional education. But I have good news. The modern science of neurology has made it abundantly clear that your brain changes. Whether you are 2 or 20 or 80 years old, your brain changes. And that means that your mind can change at any age. So if you find yourself pining for this kind of education, let me tell you that you yourself can start today. It's as simple as taking a walk in the woods. But, and here's the kicker, you have to do it regularly. You can't just do it once or twice. And here's the other thing. You need to change some of your patterns of comfort. It's not enough to walk with your sneakers in the forest. You have to touch it. You have to feel it. You have to smell it. I guarantee you, you will find your mind, not just your body, stimulated in ways that you can hardly imagine.
Here we go. What are we looking for?
Otters.
I think there's 3 of them. Look, there's like a whole family of them. Look at them.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa, look at them right there.
Look at them.
Do you see them?
Yes, I do.
I think it's 3. No, there's more. That is so cool.
Yes.
Wow.
To our children,